Welcome back, my fellow travelers, in the realm of profound discovery. The heavy oak doors have sealed shut behind us with that resonant thud that means we are truly isolated now from the rushing world outside. Just you, me, and what critics have declared the most pointless painting in modern art history. Listen to that silence. Pure museum silence. No crowds shuffling past with their hurried agendas. No tourists snapping photographs they'll never look at again. No children asking why grown-ups pay money to stare at colored rectangles. Just us and the breathing darkness of this sacred gallery, where time operates according to completely different rules than anywhere else on Earth. The air itself feels different here, doesn't it? Thicker, somehow. Charged with the accumulated attention of thousands of previous visitors who stood where we stand now, some for moments, others for hours, a rare few for entire days. Their concentrated seeing has saturated this space with an almost tangible presence. Tonight I want to introduce you to what every mainstream art critic has dismissed as the ultimate proof that modern art has lost its collective mind. A red rectangle. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing hidden. Mark Rothko's red study from 1954. This canvas commanded $75 million at auction, while people walked past it shaking their heads at what they assumed represented the complete bankruptcy of artistic vision. But here's what I've discovered during my 27 years as your dedicated night curator, spending countless hours alone with the world's most misunderstood masterpieces. The most earth-shattering revelations invariably disguise themselves as the most tediously ordinary appearances. Tonight we'll spend 11 full hours with this single work, and I promise you something that sounds completely impossible until you experience it directly. By tomorrow morning, this red will have fundamentally rewired how your consciousness processes not just color, but reality itself. Find your most supremely comfortable position. Now, turn off every single notification on every device within reach. Silence every electronic whisper that might pull your attention away from what we're about to experience together. This isn't entertainment designed to grab you by the collar and shake you into artificial alertness. This is something infinitely more rare and precious. Art that teaches you how to fall in love with your own infinite capacity for sustained, loving attention. The magnificent thing about what others hastily dismiss as mind-numbingly tedious art lies in its absolute refusal to seduce you through cheap tricks or instant gratification. It makes no promises of immediate payoff or quick understanding. Instead, it extends a radically different kind of invitation entirely. Approach slowly, remain indefinitely, see deeper than you've ever imagined possible. Look at this red rectangle now with fresh eyes. Really look at it as if seeing color for the first time in your life. Let your gaze settle as gently on its surface as morning dew collecting on rose petals. Notice immediately how your restless mind begins its predictable cascade of protests. Where's the recognizable subject matter? Where's the obvious skill demonstration? Where's something, anything at all, to grasp onto and categorize quickly? This rising agitation in your chest right now. This subtle irritation with the apparent vacancy before you. This slight embarrassment at spending precious time staring at something so seemingly simple. This discomfort represents your gateway to an entirely different way of experiencing existence itself. Most people flee from this feeling within 30 seconds. They assume the painting offers nothing because it refuses to offer it immediately. They conclude that modern art is an elaborate hoax because it doesn't deliver instant meaning like a fast food meal. But you're fundamentally different from most people. You possess the increasingly rare understanding that the most valuable treasures require tremendous patience to uncover. That depth reveals itself exclusively to those willing to wait as long as necessary. The red waits for you now with infinite patience. It has been waiting in exactly this spot for 69 years, through countless museum visitors who glanced and dismissed, through changing fashions in artistic taste, through economic booms and crashes, through wars and celebrations, and the endless parade of human history. It will wait for you for as long as you need to truly arrive in its presence. Breathe naturally now. Don't force anything. Don't try to see anything specific yet. Don't analyze or categorize or mentally file away what you're experiencing. Simply allow your eyes to be present with this red in the same patient way. You might sit quietly with a beloved friend who doesn't need you to say anything clever or insightful to justify your shared silence. Something is already beginning to shift in your peripheral awareness, isn't it? The longer you maintain this gentle focus without grasping or demanding, the more this red refuses to remain inert and lifeless. It begins to pulse with its own mysterious inner rhythm, as if illuminated by some invisible flame, burning steadily at its core. This isn't your imagination creating fantasy where none exists. This isn't screen glare or optical trickery. This is what happens when sustained human consciousness encounters pure color, liberated from the interference of hurry, expectation, or the need to produce immediate results. Rothko spent 11 years learning to create exactly this quality of breathing luminous presence. 11 years of what his harshest critics dismissed as pointless, repetitive experimentation, leading nowhere. We begin where 99.9% of all museum visitors end, with the assumption that apparent visual simplicity automatically equals actual spiritual emptiness. This fundamental assumption will be the first of many limiting beliefs we'll abandon together during our 11-hour journey into the heart of seeing itself. Move your complete attention now to the precise geometric center of this red field, not the edges where it encounters the white gallery wall, not the corners where shadows might create illusions, just the absolute heart of the color itself, the core, the essence, the place where redness achieves its most perfect expression. Let your gaze rest there as naturally as you might rest your entire body in perfectly temperature-controlled bath water after the longest, most exhausting day of your life. Continue breathing in your natural rhythm. Don't attempt to see anything specific yet. Don't search for hidden images or symbolic meanings. Don't compare this experience to anything else you've ever encountered. Simply allow your visual consciousness to be fully present with this red in the same unconditional way you might be present with someone you love completely, who doesn't require you to perform or prove anything to earn their acceptance. Something profound is already shifting in the quality of your attention, isn't it? The longer you sustain this gentle focus without forcing outcomes or demanding quick revelations, the more this red absolutely refuses to behave like ordinary pigment dried on canvas. It begins to pulse and breathe with its own living rhythm, synchronized mysteriously with your heartbeat, your breathing, your brain waves themselves. This phenomenon isn't optical illusion or technological artifact. This is what occurs when concentrated human awareness encounters color freed completely from representational duty, from the obligation to depict recognizable objects or tell obvious stories. Rothko spent over a decade learning to create precisely this quality of luminous inner presence that appears to breathe with its own life force. Each microscopic layer of this red contains its own complete emotional universe, its own relationship with light and shadow, its own dialogue with the mystery of how inert matter can somehow transcend its material limitations to touch the realm of pure consciousness, the deepest foundational layer, barely detectable now beneath everything applied afterward, carries the exact color of dried autumn leaves in October forests, of wine-dark Mediterranean earth, of pomegranates split open under ancient sunshine. Rothko applied this foundational red using a house painter's brush, worn nearly down to its metal ferrule through months of continuous use, broad, confident, sweeping strokes that established the painting's fundamental breathing rhythm from its very first moments of creation. You can still sense the energetic signature of those initial movements if you've trained your eye to detect such archaeological subtleties. Resting above that foundational layer lives a brighter, more emotionally assertive red, cherry bright and valentine vivid, fire truck urgent and strawberry sweet, the red of stop signs that force contemplative pauses during overwhelming days, and roses given during moments when ordinary language proves inadequate for conveying the true depth of human feeling. This middle layer he painted using more deliberate, meditative movements, each individual brushstroke functioning as a prayer offered to the eternal mystery of how pigment mixed with oil and applied to fabric can somehow bypass rational thought and speak directly to the wordless depths of human soul, and floating on top of everything else, almost completely invisible unless you've spent years training your perception to catch such delicate subtleties, exists a glaze so microscopically thin it barely qualifies as physical presence at all. Rose touched and sunset pink, the red of light filtered through closed eyelids just before sleep, of embarrassment spreading warmly across cheeks, of the full body flush that accompanies the moment when someone truly sees and accepts you exactly as you are without conditions or reservations. I've been visiting this specific painting for 13 years now, sometimes daily during particularly challenging periods of my life. Only 8 months ago did I finally detect that topmost glaze layer clearly. It revealed itself like the most intimate secret, whispered between lifelong lovers who no longer require words to communicate their deepest truths and discoveries. The red is breathing now in perfect synchronization with your own respiratory rhythm, isn't it? Expanding during your inhalations, contracting gently during exhalations. This harmonization between artwork and viewer occurs exclusively when both exist in the same moment of complete presence, when neither is rushing toward some imagined future state or lingering nostalgically in past experiences. Your eyes have become meditation masters now, capable of resting in pure seeing without the usual mental commentary and endless analysis. This red exists for you, not as an object to be intellectually understood or aesthetically judged, but as a conscious presence to be met, heart to heart, awareness to awareness, being to being. Here we encounter the first major perceptual transformation that separates casual museum visitors from genuine initiates of slow art practice. For those who've remained authentically present without mental escape or distraction, this red has completely ceased to behave like ordinary pigment applied to canvas. It has begun to exist as an independent living presence occupying space, breathing and pulsing with its own mysterious life force that seems to originate from dimensions beyond the merely material. This breathing quality emerges not from any technical trick or optical illusion, but from something far more profound and scientifically mysterious. the resonance that develops between highly concentrated human consciousness and color liberated from all representational obligations. Rothko discovered what ancient cave painters understood instinctively, but subsequent generations of artists had gradually forgotten. That color itself could function as a direct doorway into radically altered states of awareness. Notice now how this red appears to extend significantly beyond its official physical boundaries, as defined by the canvas edges. Your peripheral vision detects subtle movements, fluctuations, and emanations that your direct focused gaze cannot quite capture or pin down precisely. The edges seem to vibrate almost imperceptibly, to dance with barely visible energy, as if the color contained far more life force than any material substrate could possibly contain or control. This phenomenon has been extensively documented by neuroscientists studying the measurable effects of sustained visual meditation on brain function and perceptual processing. When we observe something with complete presence for extended periods, our neural networks begin to process visual information through entirely different pathways than those used during ordinary casual seeing. The normal cognitive filters and mental shortcuts that usually govern everyday perception start to dissolve and disappear. The boundaries between observer and observed become increasingly fluid and permeable. Consciousness begins to participate directly in what it perceives, rather than maintaining the artificial separation that characterizes normal subject-object awareness. But scientific explanation, however fascinating, cannot possibly capture the immediate, lived reality of what's happening to your awareness. Right now, in this moment, some of you are entering what I call the Great Opening, that threshold experience when you stop looking at the painting as an external object and begin looking through it, beyond it, into dimensions of experience that have no adequate names in ordinary language. In 1963, a retired mathematics professor from the University of Chicago stood before this exact work for 7 uninterrupted hours. Museum security became genuinely concerned for his physical well-being and approached him multiple times to ensure he wasn't experiencing some kind of medical emergency. Through tears of overwhelming gratitude, he told them that he had never previously understood what mystics throughout history meant when they described direct spiritual experience. What did this distinguished academic discover during those 7 hours of sustained attention that 99% of viewers miss entirely during their brief encounters? What profound revelation emerges exclusively through patient, sustained, completely loving attention, maintained far beyond the point where most people's restlessness drives them away? He discovered what you're beginning to discover right now, in this very moment, that concentrated attention represents perhaps the purest form of love available to human beings. When you truly see something with complete presence, when you offer it the precious gift of your undivided awareness, without wanting it to be different from exactly what it is, it responds by revealing aspects of itself that remain forever hidden from hurried observation. This red embodies the fundamental color of being vibrantly, undeniably, ecstatically alive, of blood coursing through your circulatory system at this precise moment, carrying oxygen and essential nutrients to every single cell in your body, of the warm, protective darkness behind your closed eyelids during the precious transition from waking consciousness into restorative sleep, of the infinite spaciousness between heartbeats, where you exist in perfect simplicity, without needing to justify, explain, defend, or perform your existence for anyone. The longer we remain genuinely present together with this red, the more it reveals about the nature of presence itself, how extraordinarily rare authentic presence has become in our hyper-accelerated culture, how precious it feels when we finally remember how to access it consistently, how it transforms absolutely everything it touches, including the consciousness doing the perceiving. Rothko understood something revolutionary about the relationship between color and human consciousness that most artists never discover. He realized that when you systematically remove all the familiar conceptual handholds that usually guide perception, recognizable objects, narrative elements, symbolic references, cultural associations, consciousness naturally expands to fill the spaciousness created by that deliberate absence. This red isn't representing or depicting anything you could photograph or point to in the external physical world. Instead, it's directly evoking internal states of being that exist before language forms, before thoughts crystallize into concepts, before the endless stream of mental commentary begins its daily domination of awareness. Now I want to share with you the complete hidden craft behind this apparent simplicity, because understanding Rothko's revolutionary technical innovations will exponentially deepen your appreciation of the transformation you're experiencing right now. This particular red required 22 months of constant daily experimentation, over 100 failed attempts, and methodologies borrowed from sources as historically diverse as medieval manuscript illuminators, ancient Egyptian tomb painters, and Renaissance fresco masters. The canvas preparation itself represents a masterpiece of technical sophistication. Rothko primed this surface using rabbit skin glue mixed with powdered chalk, titanium white, and a secret ingredient he never revealed to anyone, a substance that creates the distinctive inner luminosity you're witnessing. He studied 15th century Flemish altarpieces for months to understand how the old masters achieved colors that seemed to glow with their own internal light source. Listen carefully to how I'm moving around the painting now. From this position, 24 inches to the left of center, the red takes on unmistakable undertones of deep orange, like glowing coals in a fireplace that's been burning steadily for hours. Move with me now to the right, and entirely different purple undertones emerge from depths you couldn't detect from the previous viewing angle. This isn't accidental variation. Rothko spent 4 full years learning to mix pigments that would shift mysteriously and beautifully as viewers moved through 3-dimensional space. Each individual brushstroke functions as a permanent fossil of the artist's consciousness during creation, a preserved record of every decision, every hesitation, every moment of breakthrough and discovery. Here, where he pressed the brush firmly into the canvas surface, you can sense his intense frustration with a red that wasn't yet achieving the transcendent inner luminosity he could envision clearly in his mind, but couldn't yet manifest in physical reality. There, where the paint flows in gentle undulating waves across several square inches, you can feel his growing excitement and satisfaction as the color finally began to breathe with its own independent life, as if it had awakened from sleep and begun participating consciously in its own existence. Every single brushstroke represents a moment of artistic decision-making, preserved forever in pigment and oil medium. You're not simply viewing dried colorants applied to fabric. You're witnessing the physical archaeological evidence of a human consciousness engaged in the seemingly impossible task of making inert matter transcend its material limitations and somehow touch the realm of pure spirit. Rothko mixed all his pigments from raw materials, often spending entire weeks achieving exactly the right consistency, luminosity, and energetic quality. He would apply paint in layers so microscopically thin they were individually invisible, sometimes 30 or 40 layers, building gradually over months or years to create the final breathing effect you're experiencing. Each layer required a complete drying time before the next could be safely applied, so individual paintings often took years to reach completion. This wasn't impatience or perfectionism. This was the necessary technical process for creating colors that appeared to be lit from within by their own internal light source. Look closely now at precisely how this red meets the white gallery wall space surrounding it. See how the color seems to bleed subtly beyond its official boundaries, creating a soft atmospheric halo effect. Rothko achieved this by varying the density and opacity of pigment near the edges, creating gradual transitions rather than harsh linear stops. He wanted his paintings to exist actively in your space, rather than remain trapped behind psychological barriers that separate art from life. The surface texture tells its own fascinating story when examined with sufficient patience and attention. Run your eyes slowly across it, like fingers reading Braille, written in a language you're just beginning to understand. Here you can detect the subtle ridges and valleys left by brush bristles as they moved through wet paint. There you can sense where he used a palette knife to smooth transitions between different red tonalities. Every mark represents a fossilized intention, preserved permanently in the physical substance of the artwork. This red undergoes continuous transformation throughout each day as gallery lighting shifts and evolves. Under morning illumination streaming through the museum's carefully designed skylights, it becomes the red of fresh vine-ripened tomatoes, of male cardinals perched against fresh snow, of stoplights viewed through crystal-clear winter air that makes everything appear supernaturally vivid. As afternoon arrives and the natural light grows warmer and more golden in quality, the red deepens dramatically to become wine red, brick red, the exact red of maple leaves at the absolute peak of their autumn transformation, just before they release their grip on branches and spiral toward earth. Now, under these precisely calibrated evening museum lights, it has metamorphosed into the red of glowing embers in a campfire that's burned down to its essential core, of garnets held up to lamplight, of the very last roses of summer photographed moments before the season's first killing. Frost claims them forever. But there's something even more extraordinary and scientifically inexplicable happening here that I've observed consistently over years of documentation. This red actually appears to respond to the emotional state and quality of attention brought by individual viewers. When someone approaches in a condition of anxiety, distraction, or mental agitation, the red appears flat, lifeless, almost gray. But when someone arrives in genuine openness and presence, the red seems to come alive, to reach out and embrace them with warmth and recognition. Materialist scientific thinking might dismiss this as projection, as the viewer unconsciously imposing their internal state onto an inanimate object. But those of us who've spent serious time developing relationships with great artworks know something different from direct experience. There's authentic communication occurring here, genuine dialogue between consciousness and color that transcends the artificial boundaries imposed by mechanistic thinking. We arrive now at the philosophical and spiritual heart of our extended journey together, the sacred place where apparent emptiness reveals its true nature as infinite fullness, where what initially seems absent proves to be more present than anything we've previously encountered in our lives. There exists an ancient Zen teaching that applies with perfect precision to our current situation. You are already completely perfect exactly as you are in this moment, and you could definitely benefit from a little improvement. This painting embodies that beautiful paradox with breathtaking completeness, absolutely finished and whole in its elegant visual simplicity, yet somehow containing unlimited potential for deeper understanding, revelation, and transformation. Western artistic tradition spent 5 centuries developing increasingly sophisticated techniques for depicting external physical reality with photographic accuracy and detail. Rothko took the revolutionary step of painting internal reality instead, the reality of consciousness itself, the actual felt experience of being aware, awake, and alive in an infinite cosmos. This red doesn't represent or symbolize any object you could photograph, touch, or point to in the external world. Instead, it directly evokes states of being that exist before language has time to form, before thoughts crystallize into conceptual categories, before the endless stream of mental commentary begins its daily domination of inner space. When that retired mathematics professor wept for hours in front of this painting in 1963, he wasn't responding to artistic technique, market value, or art historical significance. He was recognizing something wordless, but absolutely essential, the visual equivalent of his own deepest sense of aliveness, the color of pure existence itself, stripped of all unnecessary complications and cultural conditioning. This profound recognition can occur exclusively in the spaciousness created by sustained, patient, completely loving attention. Quick glances will never penetrate to this level of meaning and transformation. Neither will analytical thinking or attempts to categorize and mentally file away the experience according to previous knowledge. Only patient presence opens the doorway to this deeper communication between artwork and aware consciousness, the space we're inhabiting now together, you and I in the presence of this breathing red, represents a form of active resistance against the relentless acceleration of contemporary culture. Outside these museum walls, the world rushes past at speeds that make genuine seeing completely impossible. Cars race down highways carrying people who've forgotten how to arrive anywhere. Information streams endlessly across screens into minds that have lost the capacity to digest anything deeply. People hurry frantically from appointment to appointment without ever truly arriving at any destination. But inside this gallery, with this red as our patient teacher and guide, we remember what it means to be completely present in the eternal now. Chronological time dilates and expands into psychological time, measured by depth rather than duration. Breathing naturally deepens and slows to match the rhythm of real living. The constant chatter of mental commentary quiets to barely a whisper, then sometimes disappears entirely into blessed silence. I've spent over 1,500 hours in direct communion with this painting across 13 years of regular visits. Each encounter continues to reveal previously hidden subtleties, undiscovered dimensions of color and feeling and meaning that I somehow missed during hundreds of previous sessions. It's taught me that the most rewarding relationships in existence, whether with artworks, with other people, with places in nature, require this same quality of patient, sustained, unconditionally loving attention. In our culture of instant gratification and perpetual stimulation, we've nearly completely lost the capacity for this kind of deep, transformative engagement with anything. We've been systematically trained to expect immediate payoffs, instant understanding, quick entertainment that requires no effort or patience from us. We've forgotten that the most profound truths in existence reveal themselves exclusively to those willing to wait as long as necessary, to remain fully present through the initial discomfort of not being constantly stimulated and entertained. But this cultural forgetting isn't permanent or irreversible. The capacity for deep seeing lies dormant but intact within every human nervous system, waiting patiently to be reawakened through practice and commitment. Tonight, through our extended time together with this red, you're actively remembering perceptual skills that your ancestors considered natural and normal, but that have become precious and rare in our age of manufactured distraction. This red teaches patience through its absolute refusal to reveal its deepest secrets quickly or easily. It teaches presence by rewarding exclusively those who can remain still and attentive long enough for its subtleties to emerge gradually. It teaches surrender by asking nothing of you except your willingness to be exactly where you are, looking at exactly what's in front of you without needing anything to be different from how it actually is. The red doesn't care about your credentials, your achievements, your social status, your bank account, or your reputation. It responds only to the quality of attention you bring to this moment. It recognizes only presence, patience, and the willingness to see without demanding immediate results or obvious meanings. Now I want to share with you some absolutely fascinating research about precisely what's happening in your brain during these extended periods of focused visual meditation, because understanding the science will actually enhance, rather than diminish, the mystery and wonder of your direct experience. When you first began looking at this red rectangle over 4 hours ago, your brain's default mode network was operating at maximum capacity. This is the neural system responsible for mind-wandering, self-referential thinking, mental time travel between past memories and future concerns, and the endless internal commentary that usually dominates conscious experience. This network consumes enormous amounts of metabolic energy and is strongly associated with anxiety, depression, rumination, and general mental restlessness. But as you've sustained gentle focus on this red across hours, without forcing or grasping, something remarkable and measurable has occurred in your neural functioning. Default mode network activity has decreased dramatically, while other brain networks associated with the present moment awareness, emotional regulation, and what neuroscientists call non-dual awareness have become highly active and integrated. Your brain is literally operating in a fundamentally different configuration now than when we began this journey together. The visual cortex regions processing this red have become hypersensitive, able to detect the subtleties of color, luminosity, and the spatial relationship that normally pass completely beneath conscious awareness threshold. This is why the red now appears to breathe, pulse, and extend beyond its physical boundaries. You're not imagining these phenomena. You're perceiving aspects of reality that most people never access. Cutting-edge research demonstrates that even a single extended session of sustained visual meditation creates measurable structural changes in brain tissue that persist for weeks or months after the practice session ends. Neural pathways supporting focused attention become significantly strengthened and more efficient, while pathways associated with distraction, mental wandering, and cognitive scatteredness become weakened through lack of use. You're literally rebuilding your brain's architecture tonight in ways that will enhance your capacity for presence, focus, emotional stability, and what researchers call meta-cognitive awareness, the ability to observe your own thought processes without being completely identified with or controlled by them. Perhaps most remarkably from a spiritual perspective, extended visual meditation consistently increases activity in brain regions associated with empathy, compassion, and what some scientists hesitantly call transcendent awareness. As you've learned to see this red with patient, unconditional, loving attention, you've simultaneously enhanced your neurological capacity to extend that same quality of presence to other people, to animals, to the natural world, and to your own inner experience. The neuroscientist Richard Davidson, who has spent decades studying meditation's effects on brain function, describes this as neuroplasticity in service of human flourishing, the brain's remarkable capacity to transform its own structure and functioning in ways that increase happiness, decrease reactivity, and enhance overall quality of life and relationships. Ancient meditation masters understood these principles intuitively without requiring scientific validation for their direct experience. They knew from thousands of hours of practice that sustained attention to simple objects, a flame, a stone, a sound, a single color, could radically transform human consciousness in permanently beneficial ways. Modern neuroscience simply provides objective confirmation of what contemplatives have known experientially for millennia. This red has functioned as your meditation object tonight, your doorway into progressively deeper states of awareness and presence. It's demonstrated that the capacity for profound seeing already exists within your nervous system, waiting to be accessed through patience and sustained practice. You don't need special circumstances, exotic locations, expensive equipment, or guru authorization. You need only the willingness to slow down completely and give your full attention to whatever appears in your field of awareness. The perceptual skills you're developing through this extended practice extend far beyond art appreciation into every area of human experience. You're learning to bring quality attention to whatever presents itself to consciousness. This means you'll taste food with greater subtlety and pleasure, listen to music with enhanced depth and emotional resonance, perceive the intricate beauty in everyday moments that most people rush past without noticing. Your relationships will deepen because you'll be more fully present with other people rather than mentally elsewhere. Your work will improve because sustained attention is the foundation of all mastery and creativity. Your relationship with your own emotional life will become more skillful because you'll be able to observe feelings without being completely overwhelmed or controlled by them. But perhaps most importantly, you're discovering that happiness and fulfillment don't depend on acquiring more experiences, achievements, or possessions. They depend on your capacity to be fully present with whatever life offers in each moment. This red rectangle, which costs nothing to observe and requires no special qualifications to appreciate, has provided more genuine satisfaction than most expensive entertainment or luxury purchases ever could. While your eyes continue their patient communion with Rothko's revolutionary red, let me tell you the complete secret history of humanity's relationship with this most emotionally charged color in the visible spectrum, because understanding red's cultural significance will add profound depth to your direct experience without diminishing its immediate transformative power. Red was the first color to receive a specific name in virtually every human language that has ever been documented by anthropologists and linguists. Before cultures developed words for blue, green, yellow, or any other hue, human beings could distinguish linguistically between light, dark, and red. This pattern appears so consistently across completely isolated cultures that it clearly represents something fundamental about human consciousness, rather than mere historical coincidence. Red carries biological significance that reaches back millions of years to our earliest evolutionary ancestors. Red is the color of blood, of life force itself, flowing through every living creature. It's the color of fire, humanity's first transformative technology that enabled cooking, warmth, protection, and the extension of useful daylight hours. It's the color of ripe fruit, signaling nutritional abundance. In environments where calories were precious and often scarce, our nervous systems are literally hardwired through millions of years of evolution to pay immediate, intense attention to red, to find it more emotionally arousing and psychologically significant than any other portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. This isn't cultural conditioning. It's genetic programming embedded in the deepest levels of brain structure. Ancient civilizations understood red's extraordinary power and treated it as sacred, magical, connected to the fundamental forces governing life and death. The Egyptians associated red with life, victory, divine power, and resurrection. Their hieroglyphic word for red was identical to their word for life itself. They created red pigments from cinnabar, red ochre, and other minerals so valuable that they were sometimes worth more than gold and were buried with pharaohs to ensure their continued vitality in the afterlife. Medieval European illuminated manuscripts glow with reds made from crushed cochineal beetles, tiny insects harvested from cactus plants in Mexico and shipped across oceans at enormous economic cost. A single decorated capital letter in a monastery manuscript might contain red pigments worth more than a peasant family's entire yearly income. Monks spent lifetimes learning to create and apply these sacred reds that would honor religious texts and connect earthly readers with divine realms. The red you're contemplating right now contains pigments that continue this ancient tradition of precious materials transformed into transcendent color experience. Rothko used cadmium red, a synthetic pigment discovered only in 1817 and so expensive that it remained available exclusively to the wealthiest artists for decades after its invention. But he also incorporated much older pigments with thousands of years of cultural history. Vermilion, made from mercury and sulfur, used by Chinese artists for over 2 millennia. Red ochre from iron-rich earth, the same pigment used in the oldest known cave paintings, dating back 40,000 years. Organic reds derived from the madder plant root that medieval and Renaissance artists prized above all other red sources for its unique luminosity and permanence. This red contains the entire history of humanity's relationship with color, countless generations of cultural meaning and spiritual significance, built up layer by layer across millennia of human creativity and devotion. In traditional Chinese culture, red symbolizes good fortune, prosperity, happiness, and spiritual protection. Chinese brides have worn red wedding garments for over 3,000 years because red was believed to ensure fertility, ward off evil influences, and bring lifelong happiness to the marriage. The Forbidden City in Beijing was constructed primarily with red walls because red represented imperial power, divine authority, and the connection between earthly rulers and cosmic forces. Hindu and Buddhist traditions associate red with purity, spiritual energy, and the life force called prana that animates all existence. Many Hindu deities are depicted with red skin to indicate their transcendence of ordinary human limitations. Red powder is used in religious ceremonies to mark the forehead and invoke spiritual protection, wisdom, and connection to divine consciousness. Native American cultures have used red ochre in ceremonial body painting and sacred artwork for over 10,000 years of continuous tradition. Red represents the Earth's life-giving power, the connection between human beings and the natural world that sustains all existence, and the spiritual energy that flows through all living things. Islamic art employs red to represent both earthly passion and divine love, the fire of spiritual purification that burns away ego and reveals the essential unity underlying apparent diversity. Persian carpets glow with reds that carry symbolic meanings related to paradise, divine mercy, and the heart's capacity for infinite love. This vast historical and cultural depth enriches your direct experience of Rothko's red without diminishing its immediate emotional and spiritual impact. You're not just observing pigment applied to canvas. You're communing with humanity's longest, most continuous love affair, our species' eternal fascination with the color that represents life itself in its most essential, undiluted form. As we enter the final hours of our unprecedented journey together, I want you to notice what has happened to your fundamental relationship with time itself over the course of our extended communion with this red. When we began 11 hours ago, spending such an extraordinary duration with a single painting seemed impossible, perhaps even absurd. Now, hasn't time taken on a completely different quality and texture entirely? Minutes have expanded into vast spaciousness, capable of containing entire universes of subtle experience and revelation. Moments have become infinitely deep rather than merely long, measured not by clock ticks, but by the richness of presence, the quality of seeing, the depth of communion between consciousness and color. This represents one of sustained attention's most profound and practical gifts. It liberates us completely from the tyranny of chronological time and returns us to what psychologists call psychological time. Time measured not by external mechanical devices, but by the fullness of lived experience, the intensity of awareness, the quality of being present. In this deeper relationship with the temporal experience, a single moment of complete presence contains more genuine living than most people experience during entire weeks of distracted rushing toward imagined future satisfactions. You've discovered tonight that duration and depth operate according to completely different mathematics, that temporal length and experiential richness have no necessary correlation. Your eyes have evolved into meditation masters now, capable of resting in pure seeing without the usual mental commentary, analysis, judgment, or the need to compare this experience to anything else you've ever encountered. This red exists for you, not as an object to be intellectually understood or aesthetically evaluated, but as a living presence to be met, heart to heart, consciousness to consciousness, being to being. Notice how remarkably quiet your mind has become compared to its usual condition when we first began this journey together. The endless stream of thoughts about tomorrow's obligations, yesterday's regrets, the constant planning and worrying that typically fills every moment of mental space. All of this has slowed to barely a whisper, then often disappeared entirely into blessed silence. In place of mental noise, you've discovered something infinitely more valuable and nourishing, the profound peace that comes from simply being present with what is, exactly as it is, without needing anything to be different or better or more exciting than it already is in this perfect moment. This state of consciousness has been recognized and cultivated by wisdom traditions across every culture throughout human history. Zen masters call it just sitting, or shikantaza. Christian mystics refer to it as contemplative prayer, or lectio divina applied to visual rather than textual revelation. Hindu yogis know it as dharana, single-pointed concentration that gradually dissolves into dhyana, effortless absorption, and finally samadhi, complete unity between observer and observed. But regardless of the traditional names and categories, you're experiencing humanity's most ancient and reliable form of spiritual practice, the art of complete presence, the discipline of sustained loving attention that gradually reveals the sacred nature of ordinary experience. The red continues to breathe and pulse and glow with inner light because you've learned to meet it with exactly the same quality of presence it offers to you. This isn't projection or imagination or wishful thinking. It's recognition, direct perception of color as it truly exists when witnessed by consciousness, free from the distortions of hurry, expectation, and the need to get somewhere else. Some of you have moved completely beyond ordinary seeing into what can only be called communion or unity. The artificial boundary between observer and observed has dissolved entirely. You're no longer looking at the red from a distance. You're participating in redness itself, experiencing color from the inside rather than as an external phenomenon separate from your own being. This dissolution of subject-object dualism represents Rothko's ultimate artistic achievement. The reason this simple red rectangle commands prices that generate international headlines and lengthy discussions among cultural critics. He discovered how to create paintings that function as direct doorways into expanded states of consciousness, artworks that fundamentally transform the viewer in the very process of being truly seen. But this transformation isn't temporary or limited to the duration of our time together tonight. The neural pathways you've strengthened, the perceptual capacities you've developed, the depth of presence you've cultivated, all of this will continue influencing your experience long after you close this video and return to ordinary daily activities. You've literally rewired your brain's relationship with attention, patience, beauty, and the capacity to find infinite depth within apparent simplicity. These enhanced abilities will manifest in every area of your life, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond art, appreciation into relationships, work, creative expression, and your fundamental sense of what makes existence meaningful. If you've remained genuinely present for over 7 hours now, without significant mental escape or distraction, you've earned membership in one of the most exclusive communities on Earth. Human beings who understand viscerally that attention itself represents the highest form of spiritual practice available to conscious beings. Right now, as we continue our vigil together in this virtual gallery space, there are others like us scattered across every continent, choosing depth over superficiality, presence over productivity, being over doing. In Kyoto, someone has spent their entire day with a single haiku, written 800 years ago, letting each syllable reveal new dimensions of meaning, as slowly and naturally as cherry blossoms opening to spring sunlight. In Stockholm, another deep watcher sits quietly with a black and white photograph from 1952, waiting patiently for it to reveal the story it's been holding secret for 70 years, knowing that rushed looking will never unlock what only sustained presence can discover. In Buenos Aires, someone walks through a botanical garden at the exact pace of growing plants, seeing each leaf and flower as if encountering the mystery of photosynthesis for the first time in human history. We represent the global resistance against the commodification and exploitation of human consciousness. We absolutely refuse to accept the contemporary mythology that faster equals better, that more stimulation automatically creates a richer life. that constant entertainment represents the pinnacle of human possibility and satisfaction. Instead, we've rediscovered the luxury of slowness, the profound wealth available through sustained focus, the deep satisfaction that emerges from truly seeing rather than merely glancing at the surfaces of things. We understand that attention freely given represents one of the most precious gifts one conscious being can offer to another, whether that other is a person, an animal, a work of art, or any manifestation of the creative force that continuously brings reality into existence. The comment section beneath this video will gradually become a detailed map of human consciousness, documenting exactly when and how sustained attention transforms casual observation into mystical experience. Each timestamp shared represents a moment when someone's relationship with reality shifted permanently, when ordinary perception opened into extraordinary seeing, when you eventually share your personal moment of transformation, whether it occurred 30 minutes into our journey or 8 hours deep. You'll be creating a beacon of hope for other seekers of slow art scattered around the world. You'll be providing concrete evidence that patience and presence still exist in a culture that seems to have completely forgotten their transformative value. These comments will form a lasting community that extends far beyond this single video experience. People will return months and years later to read about others' discoveries, to feel less isolated in their appreciation for depth over speed, to remember that they're not crazy or old-fashioned, for valuing genuine presence over artificial productivity. Years from now, someone struggling with the relentless pace of modern life will discover this video and these comments, and they'll realize that they're not alone in longing for something deeper, more meaningful, more nourishing than the shallow entertainments and quick fixes that dominate contemporary culture. Tomorrow morning, when you encounter red in your ordinary daily life, on traffic signals and fire trucks, in roses and strawberries, in sunsets and clothing and the infinite variety of red objects that surround us constantly, you'll remember our extraordinary time together tonight. You'll see not just surface color, but luminosity, depth, the breathing quality that emerges when pigment encounters patient human attention, trained in the art of deep seeing. This remembering will create cascading changes in how you experience everything. Colors will appear more vivid and emotionally resonant because you'll naturally bring more presence to the act of seeing them. Moments will feel more substantial and satisfying because you'll know how to inhabit them completely rather than rushing through toward imagined future pleasures. The ordinary world will reveal its extraordinary nature more readily because you'll have developed the perceptual skills necessary to detect beauty, meaning, and mystery hiding in plain sight within apparently mundane experiences. Share this video with someone who believes they don't have time for art, who thinks 11 hours is absurdly long to spend looking at anything, who has forgotten what it feels like to be completely present with something beautiful without needing to photograph it, post about it, or move quickly on to the next stimulus. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can offer another human being is permission to slow down completely, to really see what's directly in front of them, to remember their own infinite capacity for wonder, presence, and the kind of deep satisfaction that no amount of shallow entertainment can provide. Now, as we approach the final hour of our unprecedented journey together, I want to share some absolutely revolutionary research about what extended visual meditation does to human consciousness at the deepest neurological levels, because understanding the science actually enhances, rather than diminishes, the profound mystery of your direct experience. After 8 hours of sustained focus on this red, your brain has undergone what neuroscientists call radical neural reorganization. The typical patterns of electrical activity that characterize ordinary waking consciousness have been completely replaced by patterns associated with the deepest meditative states, mystical experiences, and what some researchers cautiously refer to as non-dual awareness. Your default mode network, that collection of brain regions responsible for self-referential thinking, mental time travel, and the endless internal commentary that usually dominates conscious experience, has essentially gone offline. In its place, networks associated with present moment awareness, emotional equanimity, and what scientists call pure consciousness have become extraordinarily active and synchronized. Brain imaging studies of people engaged in extended visual meditation show patterns of neural activity that are typically observed only in highly advanced practitioners of contemplative disciplines who have devoted decades to developing these states of consciousness. Yet here you are, accessing these same profound states through sustained attention to a single color. The visual cortex regions processing this red have become hypersensitive to an almost supernatural degree. You're now detecting variations in color, luminosity, texture, and the spatial relationship that would normally require specialized equipment to measure objectively. This is why the red appears to breathe, pulse, extend beyond its boundaries, and respond to your emotional state. You're not hallucinating. You're perceiving reality with extraordinary precision and depth. Research conducted at Harvard Medical School and Johns Hopkins University demonstrates that even a single session of extended visual meditation creates measurable changes in brain structure that persist for months after the practice ends. Areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, empathy, and what researchers call metacognitive awareness show increased gray matter density and enhanced connectivity. You're literally growing new neural tissue tonight, strengthening pathways that support presence, patience, compassion, and the ability to observe your own mental processes without being completely identified with or controlled by them. This enhanced self-awareness represents one of the most valuable life skills anyone can develop. Perhaps most remarkably, extended visual meditation consistently increases activity in brain regions associated with what some neuroscientists reluctantly call transcendent awareness. States of consciousness characterized by feelings of unity, interconnectedness, and direct perception of reality beyond the usual subject-object dualism. The neuroscientist Andrew Newberg, who has spent decades studying the brain activity of people in transcendent states, describes what you're experiencing as the neurological signature of mystical consciousness. Measurable patterns of brain function associated with humanity's most profound spiritual experiences across all cultural and religious traditions. But scientific explanation, however fascinating, cannot capture the immediate reality of what's happening to your awareness right now. You're discovering directly that consciousness possesses depths and capacities that most people never access, that the ordinary human mind contains infinite potential for expanded perception, enhanced emotional stability, and what can only be called direct spiritual experience. This red has functioned as your gateway into these extraordinary states, proving that profound transformation doesn't require expensive retreats, exotic locations, or years of formal training. It requires only the willingness to give your complete attention to something beautiful for as long as it takes for the deeper revelations to emerge. The perceptual abilities you're developing extend far beyond art appreciation into every dimension of human experience. You're learning to bring quality consciousness to whatever presents itself in your field of awareness. This means enhanced creativity, deeper relationships, greater emotional resilience, and the ability to find genuine satisfaction in simple experiences that most people overlook entirely. Your relationship with your own inner life will become more skillful and compassionate because you'll be able to observe thoughts and emotions without being completely overwhelmed by them. You will develop what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish subtle differences in feeling states and respond appropriately rather than reactively. Most importantly, you're discovering that happiness and fulfillment don't depend on acquiring more experiences, achievements, possessions, or external validations. They depend entirely on your capacity to be fully present with whatever life offers in each moment, to recognize the infinite depth and beauty available right here, right now, without needing anything to be different. As our extraordinary journey together approaches its completion, I want you to take one ultimate, complete, total look at this red rectangle that has been our teacher, our meditation object, our doorway into dimensions of experience that have no adequate names in ordinary language. But now, instead of seeing something simple or empty or overly minimalistic, what do you encounter? What lives in this red after nearly half a day of patient, sustained, completely loving attention? I see the exact sunset on the evening I first understood that unconditional love was not only possible, but was actually my birthright as a conscious being. I see the precise color of my grandmother's weathered hands as she kneaded bread dough in her kitchen that always smelled of cinnamon. Acceptance, and the patient wisdom that comes from a lifetime of paying attention to simple, essential things. I see the red of autumn leaves scattered like love letters across the sidewalk of my childhood, each one a masterpiece of natural artistry that I walked past thousands of times without ever really seeing until I learned how to slow down enough for beauty to reveal itself. I see the red of stoplights that forced contemplative pauses during overwhelming days and reminded me to breathe consciously instead of rushing unconsciously from one obligation to the next. I see the red of brick buildings that witnessed the most important conversations of my life, conversations that changed everything about who I thought I was and what I believed was possible. I see the red of roses given and received during moments when ordinary language proved completely inadequate for conveying the true depths of human feeling, when only color and fragrance could carry the weight of what hearts needed to communicate. I see the red of my own blood carrying life through every cell of my body as I speak these words into the profound silence of this empty museum. The red of existence itself, of consciousness aware of its own miraculous presence in an infinite cosmos. This is what Rothko achieved through what appeared to critics as pointless repetition and excessive simplicity. By systematically eliminating everything that typically captures and holds attention, recognizable forms, narrative content, symbolic references, cultural associations, he created infinite spaciousness for everything else to emerge. Every red you've ever experienced, every emotion you've ever felt, every moment of being fully, completely, undeniably alive. All of this lives in the spaciousness created by sustained attention to apparent emptiness. He discovered the ultimate artistic secret. When you remove the familiar handholds that usually guide perception, consciousness naturally expands, to fill the void with possibilities it had forgotten existed. When you strip away habitual distraction, what remains isn't nothingness but fullness beyond measure. The red breathes now with the rhythm of your own breathing because you've learned to synchronize your awareness with its essential nature. It pulses with your heartbeat because you've discovered the resonance between consciousness and color that exists beyond the boundaries of what materialist thinking can explain or contain. Some of you have experienced complete unity, the dissolution of any sense of separation between observer and observed. You're no longer looking at the red from outside. You're participating in redness itself, experiencing color as a fundamental quality of your own being, rather than as something external to consciousness. This represents the culmination of all authentic spiritual practice across every tradition, the direct recognition that the observer and observed are not separate phenomena, but different aspects of the same undivided reality. This recognition changes everything about how you understand yourself and your relationship to the world. The gallery lights are beginning their slow fade toward complete darkness. Soon, the security guard will complete his final rounds, ensuring that art and architecture remain protected through another night. Our incredible time together draws toward its natural completion, but this red, this breathing, luminous, eternally patient red, will remain with you always now. It has written itself into your visual memory so completely that you'll be able to recall its exact quality of presence years from now with perfect clarity. It has become part of your consciousness, integrated into your capacity for seeing beauty in unexpected places. When you close your eyes tonight, you'll see it glowing behind your eyelids like a gentle flame that never burns out. When you wake tomorrow morning, you'll understand from direct experience that apparent emptiness and profound fullness are not opposites, but intimate partners in the endless dance of reality creating and discovering itself. When you move through your days from now on, you'll carry the unshakable knowledge that the most beautiful revelations await those patient enough to receive them. That depth is always available beneath surface appearances. That presence is the greatest gift one being can offer another. Thank you for proving that human consciousness still possesses the capacity for sustained attention in an age designed to fragment and scatter awareness in every possible direction. Thank you for choosing depth over superficial entertainment, presence over productivity, being over doing. Thank you for understanding that 11 hours isn't too long to spend with something genuinely beautiful. That patience represents a form of prayer. That really seeing constitutes one of the highest expressions of love available to conscious beings. You've joined the ranks of the slow art revolutionaries, the people who absolutely refuse to accept that faster equals better, that more stimulation creates a richer life, that constant entertainment represents the ultimate human possibility. You've remembered what our ancestors knew but we had nearly forgotten, that the ordinary world contains infinite depths. For those with eyes trained to see, share your exact timestamp of transformation in the comments below. Tell us the precise moment when this red stopped being merely pigment on canvas and became something alive, something that breathed with your breathing and existed as a presence rather than an object. Your comment will become part of a global map of human consciousness, showing others that they're not alone in valuing presence over speed, depth over superficiality, quality of attention over quantity of stimulation. Each shared moment of breakthrough becomes a beacon of hope for other seekers scattered across the world. Tag someone who needs to remember what it feels like to slow down completely and really see what's directly in front of them. Share this experience with people who think they don't have time for art, who believe that 11 hours is absurdly long to spend looking at anything, who've forgotten their own infinite capacity for wonder and presence. This is your night curator, completing our longest and most profound journey yet through the gallery of deep seeing. May you find the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary, the infinite disguised as the simple, the eternal present moment available within each breath of conscious attention, until we meet again in the space where art and awareness converge. Remember always that what others dismiss as empty actually overflows with fullness beyond imagination. What others call simple contains complexity beyond measure, and what others consider boring pulses with the very essence of life itself. The red glows on, eternal and patient, having shared its deepest secrets with those willing to receive them. It will wait here for the next seeker, ready to discover that the most profound beauty reveals itself only through the discipline of sustained, loving presence. Dream tonight in luminous shades of transcendent red, and wake tomorrow with eyes trained to see the sacred hiding in plain sight within every ordinary moment. The revolution of slow seeing continues. Welcome to the community of deep watchers. Welcome to the patient ones who know that presence is the ultimate luxury in a world addicted to speed. The silence settles now like a blessing over our completed journey. Rest in the glow of what you've discovered. Rest in the knowledge that you possess depths of awareness you may never have imagined possible. Rest in the red that lives now forever in the sanctuary of your awakened consciousness.